Good day, I'm Rocky, and this presentation is about the Hotrod RDA, designed by Swedish Vaper and produced by Deepinmaker. I was sent this device sample for the purpose of review. The Hotrod is a 24mm dual coil RDA with a V10 airflow block under the hood, or so it says in the shipping tin. It has a piston top cap, 810 exhaust drip tip, and a large fuel reservoir, or commonly called a juice well. This one is titanium gray in color. The size is 24 by 103 millimeters. The main material is stainless steel. It has an 810 drip tip and a 510 thread. The Hotrod RDA is an interesting take on the old quest to skin the vaping cat, so to speak. There's so much that is different and the same about this RDA that I can't help but address it in detail. The Hotrod RDA comes in a retro-looking box with an image of a 1940s chop-top coupe on the top. It also tells the size of the RDA, 24 millimeters, and gives credit to the designer, Swedish Vaper. Opening the tin reveals an owner's manual that shows a breakdown of the RDA along with building instructions, cleaning and disassembly instructions, and a curious statement that reads, "However, this is not as squonking as you know it. Hotrod squonking does not suck all the liquid back in the bottle. Instead, it is designed to refill the two-side juice wells, allowing for more vaping and less squonking. It also keeps the liquid in your bottle clean by not sucking any gunk back in. Or you could just pop the top and drip as usual." They really lay on the theme pretty thick. The shipping documents for this RDA listed it as a vehicle spare parts. Underneath the owner's manual, we will find a theme-based cardboard insert that has cutouts for the top cap, the RDA base or build deck, and an 810 exhaust/drip tip, the extra glass for the windows, and the spares bag is located underneath the cardboard insert. In the spares bag, we find two unidentified Clapton-type coils. I tried to use them but could not get them to heat up properly. One kept leading the other, so they never saw use beyond trying to get them synced. Also included is an 810 seal for the top cap, a squonk pin, one larger size seal for the AFC ring, two smaller seals for the base to seal the top cap, two extra beefy clamp screws, and the ever-present Blue Barbie flat-tip screwdriver. The dome top cap very much resembles the flat-top piston, complete with ring cutouts along the top. The two round holes on the side for what would be a piston wrist pin, and two elongated windows that allow peering into the inner structure, thus showing you your build and wicking. While this does seem gimmicky, it is functional in that you can inspect your build without removing the top cap. Also, the top cap is indexed to fit only one way and helps in installing and removing the RDA from the mod. However, the top cap is in three parts: the top, the glass, and the bottom. The glass has a seal on the top and bottom. Unfortunately, there are no extra seals for the top and bottom of the glass, at least not in my sample package. The seals are flat, not round, and if you take the top cap apart for cleaning, getting it back together and keeping the seals in place is an aggravation. You just have to go slow, pay close attention, and be willing to make several attempts. A little VG, although messy, does help the process. Moving on to the RDA's AFC base and build deck, This is where things get interesting to me. From an outward appearance, this RDA looks much like other bottom fed AFC RDAs. The AFC ring has stops at each end of its travel and controls the airflow through two elongated openings on each side of the RDA base. Popping the top cap and peering over into the build deck and juice well, we'll see a two-post deck with beefy flathead clamping screws. Between the build posts, we'll see what resembles a stripped-down V10 engine block. The 5 cylinder openings on each side serve to feed air at an angle to the bottom of each coil. Each post has a 3.5 millimeter wide by 3 millimeter high opening for the coil leads, so it can take some very thick coil legs. However, the minimum inside leg-to-leg width has to be 8 millimeters, and the widest outside leg-to-leg width is close to 15 millimeters. That limits the coil size best suited for this RDA, and, in my opinion, it's really made for those huge Clapton-type coils. Now, back to the airflow. Incoming air rises up from underneath the build deck through 2 outlets on each side between the build post into a plenum area underneath the V10 AFC. The positive post and the AFC are one piece, with the insulator not only serving to insulate but also seal the plenum area from any juice contained in the juice well. The AFC also has holes in each end that direct squonked juice to each end and out into the juice wells. Dripping onto the top of the AFC also directs juice to each end. On the negative end, it just spills off into a space between the end of the AFC and the negative post, then out into the juice well. On the positive side, an upper hole in the post serves the same purpose, while the lower hole is a squonk outlet. While I do think this design is innovative, it also has a drawback. If you use heavy wicking on the ends of your coils, the flow of squonking juice and dripping juice gets blocked by the wicking at the end of the AFC. The results being that juice can't easily flow into the juice well and backs up on top of the AFC until it spills over into the holes and falling into the space below the deck. If you're overzealous in squonking or dripping, you can create leaking out of the AFC inlets at the bottom of the base. To help alleviate this tendency, I've started leaving my wicks a bit longer and thinning them out quite a bit before folding them under and into the juice well. I've found that with this extra thinning and length, the wicks can be positioned away from the AFC and post, creating a larger space for juice flow, and the extra length serves to anchor them into place once they're saturated. I have used several different builds in this RDA, and with each coil used, I trimmed the leg lengths to 4.5 millimeters using a coiling tool. I also used a coiling bit in each coil during the installation. Doing so allowed me to press the coils against the post and tighten down the clamp screws without deforming the coils. Afterwards, the coiling bits were used to position the coils about 2 millimeters above the AFC outlets. Closer gaps restricted the airflow more than I like, and I found that the farther you move the coils away from the airflow, the less restrictive the airflow became. Coil inner diameters ran from as small as 2 millimeters to 4 millimeters. Because of the minimum width required, I found little advantage to using smaller ID contact coils. The end of resistance was too high. The best performance came from using space coils. Fewer space wraps allowed me to tailor the build more to my liking. With single wire coils, the build post widths and openings again restrict what can be easily used. 28 gauge wires are, in my opinion, just too thin. They can be used, but the result is a flimsy coil and high resistance. 26 gauge wire coils work best, giving a good compromise between resistance and rigidity. 24 gauge worked well too, but the resistance started getting too low and the increased mass slowed the ramp up and cool down. I much prefer to keep my builds around a 10 amp current draw and will vary the resistance and voltage to tweak my builds as needed. Currently, I prefer builds that are around 0.4 ohms at 40 watts. Again, in my opinion, this RDA is made for high mass, large Clapton type coils using higher wattages than I prefer. Okay, now my cons for this RDA. The top cap assembly. This top cap uses flat seals on the top and bottom of the window glass. It isn't difficult to disassemble, but you have to be careful during reassembly, else the seals will get pushed out of position. I think it could be made easier using round seals and recessed channels to hold the seals like most RTAs and RDTAs. The AFC and squonk block. This AFC works very well, but the squonking action is limited by the coil wicking at each end of the block. It requires careful squonking and dripping to prevent excess juice from spilling over into the AFC outlets. Thinning your wicks and making them longer and putting them down in the bottom of the juice well will help this. Build versatility. The distance between the post opening limits the minimum coil size that can be used. The post openings limit the wire size that can be used. It appears to be designed for large Clapton type coils or large wire coils. That said, my con may be another user's pro. Now on to the design theme. This isn't really a con, but maybe an observation. I'm not sure of the thought process behind designing this RDA. Did they start with an idea to create an RDA that looks like automobile parts and built around that concept? Or during the design process, did someone say, hey, that AFC looks like an engine block. Let's make the top cap look like a piston. I am not arguing the engineer's innovation, just wondering what the designer was thinking. I mean no disrespect. It looks neat. It is innovative, but seems to me it looks a lot like a tail wagging the dog engineering. Alright, now for the pros. Fit, form, and function. All the machining and tolerances are very good. Everything fits as it should. Nothing is overly tight or loose. The form factor draws from what has become a standard two-post design. It functions quite well, giving very good flavor and vapor production. The ease of building. The large clamp screws and post openings make positioning and tightening coils a breeze. The large wire sizes and Clapton type coils can be installed with little effort. The design theme. Although I'm confused about the design process, I cannot fault the overall theme. In my opinion, it just looks neat. It draws attention with its appearance and innovative AFC. And for those gearheads out there, this is probably going to be a must-have device. The top cap design. I like the windows and being able to see my build in wicking. It does fog up a bit, but a cold draw will clear it. Also, appearance-wise, it draws a lot of attention. My overall impressions. I've stated before, I've yet to meet an Addy that I could not find a way to like. This one is no exception. Because it isn't my cup of tea, it's been a challenge to make it work. Again, I think it is designed for big Clapton coils and higher wattages than I prefer. It certainly isn't the best, but it does perform well while sticking to its design theme. Would I buy one? Probably not, if I had the chance to examine it in a local brick and mortar store. I certainly would give it a close look, but the wide post would steer me away because it doesn't fit my vaping style. I am not the all-knowing when it comes to vaping devices, but I do know what I like, and I like this device for what it is. An innovative, niche-filling, unique-looking device that functions well. Who knows, sometime in the future I may decide to drop a couple of fat Claptons into it, mount it on one of my PWM mods, and create huge, flavorful, dense clouds. For now, I cannot suggest to buy or pass on this item, but I hope I've given enough information for you to decide for yourself. Thanks for your time and consideration, and as always, be safe and have a vape day.